When I was pregnant with my second daughter, I called my parents excitedly and I said to them, "We've got great news. We're expecting a tax deduction." The Forward recently reported that the annual levels of Jewish giving in the US were close to $26 billion a year. That's $83 million a day. And Jewish trends of giving have changed from the old blue box for the State of Israel to very trendy online crowdfunding. But we need to ask ourselves, are we in danger of becoming too administrative and losing the soul of philanthropy? Are we concentrating too much now on due diligence, KPI reporting, and auditing? And are we losing the point of what it's really all about? Giving, receiving, and changing the world. Tonight, I'd like to propose that charity is actually a God-given dynamic in which there are several roles that we can identify with and embody. And if we balance that out with the responsibility of giving, we can make philanthropy a very meaningful experience. So, who remembers the old days? When the Girl Scouts used to knock on your door and push cookies on you? When the kids in school used to sell you Pi'elim stamps to build a classroom in Israel? That was me. Charity used to form the social fabric of our lives. Probably most of your mothers were Hadassah women, and you might actually have an entire forest in Israel with your name on it. But charity and social charity, and the way it used to be, that's where we met our friends. We used to go to the charity ball, and we might have met our future marriage partners. And charity was never, ever only that one annual guilty request for money. And till today, we still continue this. Today, things are very different, though. Today, with the press of a button online, you can donate and change the world. About 10 years ago, Howard Dean mobilized the internet and galvanized millions of people to give small amounts of money to a larger cause. And this probably led to Obama heralding his new internet campaign. For $2, you could be his presidential partner. And giving trends have changed for larger families as well. They're now turning to more formal structures to protect their money for years to come and their legacies. We have billionaires like Michael Bloomberg and Bill Gates who are planning to give away all of their money during their lifetime. And we have philanthropists who are now hiring strategists to see what will happen to their money in 20 to 50 years' time. So all of this tells us two things. One, that we want to give, and we want to be part of a bigger collective emotional experience. And two, we want to do it responsibly. So let's go back and understand, why do we give charity? How did this start? Well, I actually believe that charity is a God-given dynamic. Because if God actually created us with everything we needed, we probably would not have any reason to interact and not have a part in creation. But in order for this to work, three things have to be present. First, we have to understand that within the matrix of the concept of charity, there are roles. There's the benefactor, there's the recipient, and there's the matchmaker. And all of these roles are interchangeable and symbiotic. In fact, the Torah tells us in Parshas Mishpatim, says the word, God says, "V'nosnu," and you shall give. And actually, this word "v'nosnu" is a palindrome. When written backwards, also means, and you shall give. And the commentaries explain to us that when a person gives charity, they lack nothing as a result. In fact, they gain something. And then the cycle begins again. The second thing that needs to be present is there has to be some type of emotion. Charity is a human experience, and therefore, it needs to be something interactive. And the Rambam gives us a lot of examples of this, that in his manifesto of giving, you have to be willing to give and you have to be happy to give. Otherwise, it is just a transaction. And the third thing that needs to be present is that we want to give responsibly. We want there to be some type of justice. Now, how do we make this work? Well, the first question you need to ask yourself is, who are you? Are you the benefactor? Are you the recipient? Are you the matchmaker? Well, actually, we are all of these things at any given time. We're born recipients. Are you the benefactor? Well, if you are a parent or a teacher, or you're leading an organization, and that doesn't just mean in a profession. You could be leading an industry or an era. And then you need to ask yourself, can you see yourself as the matchmaker? Well, actually, this one's really easy because we're all natural salespeople. I love what you're wearing. The Gap, $20. We sit down for coffee and we say to our friends, you must read this book. You have got to see that film. You have to go on holiday to this place. So we're natural salespeople, and advertisers love us for this. But sometimes we confuse this idea of being voluntarily passionate about a cause and then worrying that if it becomes professional, as in the word fundraiser, that it might become too administrative and will be restricted and it'll suck the life out of us. But nothing could be farther from the truth, because I want you to imagine waking up every day and doing something you love. Now, if we just gave on emotion alone, we might end up giving all of our money away, and that wouldn't be very useful. So God says, look, you are the caretakers in this world of all of the money. And I want you to make sure to create a proper vessel so all of this passion and compassion and empathy and feeling can flow. And therefore, I'm going to give you an administrative concept. Give 10% of your money to charity. Not 20%, because that's too much. Give 10%. In Hebrew, this is known as maser. In English, it's tithing. And this is probably the forerunner of what we call smart giving. How do we apply all of these concepts? The empathy, the responsibility, creating that real type of philanthropy? On a micro level, on a personal and individual level, we have to try and create scenarios of empathy. So for yourself, you might be a friend of somebody, a parent, a child. We have to try and understand what it means to be the other person. What is it like to be a 4-year-old, the youngest in the family surrounded by adults? What's it like to be an orphan who's been abandoned by their parents and left in a train station in the cold? What's it like to be hungry and need a meal? What's it like to be without a job and look around the table and know that you cannot support your family? So we need to try and stand in everybody else's shoes to understand what it means to be a benefactor and a recipient. But I think the real magic, the real power is in the hands of the matchmaker. That ultimate universal narrative, that powerful narrative that can convey the joy, the sadness, the fear, the history, the legacy, Jewish identity, that can make any cause your cause and the most important cause in the world, and create an environment where empathy can actually flourish. So we need to go to the orphanage and hold those children and look in their eyes. We need to be able to go to a soup kitchen and maybe hand out a meal. And maybe you need to go to a job center to help somebody stand in line and get a job. And as we now know, and the Rambam tells us, that if you have $100, you should give it to 100 people because it builds your character, it builds empathy. But what about the macro level? What about these trusts and foundations that are giving away millions and billions of dollars and probably changing the world much faster than my $36? So when we imagine that there's a boardroom with the trustees sitting around the table making these very important decisions, how can we humanize that experience? How can we restore that magic we've been talking about? Well, I think foundations need to hire the former fundraisers. They need to hire the former recipients because they help us to understand what it means to sit on all sides of the funding table. The best example of this in today's day and age is a fellow named Chuck Feeney. Chuck Feeney is also known as the billionaire who wasn't. And from a young age, he built a business, sold the business, and gave all his money practically to charity. To date, that's $17.5 billion. But there's something really unique about Chuck Feeney and the way he gives. As a foundation man, he chooses his projects personally, he gets involved, and he is part of the process, and he stays true to who he is. He still wears his $15 Timex watch, he still flies economy, and he still takes a cab, because he knows what we know here tonight, that you need to embody and identify with all these roles to make charity meaningful and effective. So, what would the world be like if we were giving powerfully to people who were receiving it meaningfully, through people who helped us to understand our role in this world, in creation? And what if we were doing it consciously? That is called leadership. Now, in the beginning of this evening, I made a joke about calling my future child a tax deduction. And actually, she's here tonight. Hello, tax deduction. But we really don't think of our children in these administrative terms. However, Judaism does give us these binary concepts. On Rosh Hashanah, we say, Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King, because God wants us to understand that together with the kindness and the compassion, there has to be a discipline, and there can create a harmonious balance. And so too with philanthropy, whether you're an individual or a foundation. We have to be able to reignite the soul and the body of philanthropy so that it is a living and breathing eternal experience. Tonight, I challenge you to be conscious and intentional about the way you are giving. Good luck.
Thanks for watching Eli Talks. Click through or subscribe to the Eli Talks channel for more inspired Jewish ideas.